Hello everyone. Today we are going to learn a very interesting and humorous short story titled With a Photographer, written by Stephen Leacock. Stephen Leacock was a famous Canadian writer and humorist. He is well known for his gentle satire and humorous writing style. This story is a humorous short story narrated in the first person. It describes the narrator's unpleasant experience in a photo studio. Through humor, the author criticizes professional arrogance and artificial standards of beauty. Next point is the reason for visiting the studio. The narrator visits a photo studio to get his photograph taken. He wants a simple and natural photograph of himself. His wish is that his friends and family should remember him after his death through this particular photograph. When the narrator reaches the studio, the photographer looks at him without any enthusiasm. He is a drooping but intelligent looking man. Instead of welcoming the narrator, he coldly asks him to sit down and wait. The narrator waits for almost an hour in the waiting room. During this time, he reads very old magazines like Ladies' Campaign, Girls' Magazine, and Infant Journal. He begins to feel that he has disturbed the photographer's private and serious work. After a long wait, the photographer calls the narrator inside. The narrator sits under a beam of sunlight filtered through a cotton cloth and a frosted skylight. The photographer keeps moving in and out of the camera, covering himself with a black cloth. The photographer is not satisfied with the narrator's face. He says that the narrator's face is quite wrong. He begins to find faults in the narrator's face, head and ears instead of trying to improve the photograph. The photographer gives strange and humiliating instructions like close your mouth, droop your ears, roll your eyes, turn your face up and expand your lungs. These are some of the humiliating instructions. Keep note down these points. Okay, these instructions make the narrator feel extremely uncomfortable. The narrator feels deeply insulted and humiliated. For a good photograph, a happy mood is necessary, but the photographer completely destroys it. The narrator slowly loses his confidence and self-respect. Unable to tolerate the criticism anymore, the narrator protests. He says it is his face and that he has lived with it for 40 years. When he tries to get up from the chair, the photographer secretly takes the photograph. On another day, the narrator returns to the studio to see the developed photograph. He is shocked to see the picture. The photograph looks completely different from his real face and appearance. Next point talks about how the photographer retouches the photograph. The photographer has retouched the photograph heavily. He removes the narrator's eyebrows, draws a new one, adjusts the mouth. He uses a chemical process called Delphite. The photographer feels no guilt or regret for what he has done. He is proud of his professional skills. Instead of respecting the narrator's feelings, he is only interested in showing off his expertise. The narrator becomes extremely angry. He explains that he wanted a photograph exactly like his real face. He did not want artificial beauty but a natural memory of himself. In the end, the narrator refuses to take the photograph. He calls it worthless and useless. He asks the photographer to keep it with him and leave the studio with tears in his eyes. To conclude, With the Photographer is a humorous yet meaningful story. Stephen Leacock successfully uses humor to criticize ego and false professionalism. Now we are going to discuss the characterization of the story. The story mainly presents two characters, the narrator and the photographer. Both characters are sharply contrasted to create humor and satire. So let's move to the first character, the narrator. The narrator of the story is a 40-year-old man. The story is told in the first person, so we see everything through his eyes. He visits a photographer's studio to get his photograph taken. The narrator wants a photograph that looks exactly like him. He does not want any artificial changes or alterations. He wishes the photograph to show his face as given to him by heaven. so that his friends can remember him after his death. The narrator is a self-aware man. He knows that his face has certain shortcomings and he is accepting that. When the photographer says his face is quite wrong, the narrator calmly agrees. He has lived with that face for 40 years and has learned to accept and love it. When the narrator finally sees the developed photograph, he is deeply shocked. He cannot recognize himself in the picture. With dignity and self-respect, he calls the photograph a worthless bubble and asks the photographer to keep it. The narrator is calm and composed by nature. He patiently waits for nearly an hour without complaint. He even feels that he has intruded into the photographer's private space. He cooperates with all the strange instructions given to him. These points shows that he is a calm and composed man. Next, how he loses his patience. However, when the photographer continues to insult and criticize him, the narrator finally loses patience. He protests when his dignity is hurt. This shows that although he is patient, he does not tolerate humiliation beyond a limit. The narrator is a resolute and determined man. He knows clearly what he wants and what he dislikes. He wants truth, not artificial beauty. Therefore, he firmly rejects the photograph that does not resemble his real self. These are the points of the narrator. Okay, next we can move to the next character, the photographer. The photographer is the antagonist of the story. He presents arrogance, ego, and false professionalism. He is more concerned with the technical perfection than with human feelings. Next, we can see his physical appearance. The photographer is described as a drooping man. He appears tired and uninterested. The author says there is no need to describe him in detail because he is like any other photographer of that time. Next point, the photographer behaves more like a natural scientist than an artist. He treats the narrator as an object for experimentation. He uses chemical processes like delphide and sulfide to alter facial features, which adds humor to the story. The photographer is highly different and insensitive. He shows no enthusiasm when the narrator enters the studio. He makes him wait for an hour and ignores his feelings and wishes completely. He constantly criticizes the narrator's face. He gives ridiculous instructions like drooping ears, rolling eyes, and expanding lungs. He even clicks the photograph secretly, showing complete disrespect. The photographer lacks professional ethics. He humiliates his customer and ignores his expectations. Instead of giving what the customer wants, he imposes his own standards of beauty and produces a distorted photograph. Next point is photographer as a satirical figure. The photographer is a satirical figure in the story. Through him, Stephen Leacock criticizes egoistic professionals. He represents how excessive focus on technique can destroy individuality. Next, we can see the contrast between the two characters. The narrator and the photographer are complete opposite. The narrator values natural identity and dignity, while the photographer values artificial perfection. This sharp contrast creates humor and highlights the theme of the story. To conclude, the narrator represents self-acceptance, patience, and dignity. The photographer represents arrogance, insensitivity, and false professionalism. Through these characters, Stephen Leacock delivers a strong social message using humor and satire. Next, we can discuss the important themes of this lesson: professional arrogance, loss of individuality, artificial standards of beauty, art versus humanity, humiliation and loss of dignity, self-acceptance and identity, power imbalance between professional and client, satire on modern professionalism, irony of memory and remembrance, appearance versus reality. This one is very important, okay? So please go through these points and sub-points. You have to elaborate if it is for 4 mark. If you like this class, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell icon because I will be uploading junior CSER revision classes and live sessions before your exam. Turn on notification so you don't miss them. If you find this class helpful, please share it with your friends. Thank you and all the best for your exam.